The Forgotten Realms are home to many a strange and fearsome creature. Here, we aim to discuss them all. Go not blindly into the unknown, adventurer. Join us in browsing the bestiary.
Welcome back to Browsing the Bestiary,
Welcome
a
back.
podcast that takes an in-depth look at all those creatures that put the monster in Monster Manual,
Mm-hmm.
the beast in Bestiary,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, Andy.
The dungeons in Dragons and Dungeons. Fuck, I messed it up. Reading it off of a script. That's okay, though. Should we keep that in? Do we keep that in? I don't know.
No.
We'll keep it. We'll keep it in. For the kids. For the children.
Oh, Andy.
They'll love it.
Anyway, I'm Dungeon Mistress Jayde. Don't get this wrong, Andy. Who are you?
I am Lore Master Andy, who apparently
Great.
doesn't know how to read. It's ironic. Anyways, speaking of
What are we
things...
looking at today?
Yeah, speaking of things that don't know how to read.
Can't read?
Can't read. That's right. Not goblins. Not goblins today. Today we are looking at a creature that is commonly used as a low-level encounter, but, as we will discuss, can actually be pretty flexible. Jayde, can I get a dice roll, please?
Yes, I have these. I don't remember if I used these last episode, but these pretty like red cherry blossom metal dice, and you'll understand why I'm using metal dice here in a second.
Uh-huh.
Let's go ahead and roll. You're not gonna be able to hear it because I don't want to smash the metal dice together.
I
But
appreciate that.
ooh, big 8.
Ooh, an 8. See, now that is unfortunate because with a roll of an 8, players, DMs, you're coming face to face with the Gorgon. Jayde, tell us a little bit about the Gorgon.
So 5e Monster Manual, the introductory description in the 5th edition Monster Manual reads like this, quote, "Few creatures that encounter a Gorgon live to tell the tale. Its body is covered in iron plates, and its nostrils fume with green vapor. Faced with multiple foes, the Gorgon exhales its deadly vapor to overcome the creatures it touches by turning them into stone." End quote.
Now, I'm sure you're all wondering why we just described a Gorgon as a metallic bowl that can breathe vapor that turns its victims into stone, and not as a Medusa-like creature whose stare can turn its victims into stone. And where in the world does a creature like this exist in mythology? Is it purely from the twisted imagination of Gary Gygax? Well,
See that?
yeah, and a lot of, the iconic monsters are. But would you be surprised if I told you that it's complicated? But to make a long story short, before I make a short story long, is that really this is a case of mistaken identity. Let's start back at the beginning in ancient Greece. Okay, so
Time machine noise.
yeah, that's our time machine noise. It was beautiful, Jayde. I loved it.
Way better than Cody's.
Yeah, way better than Cody's. Yes, but shout out to Cody Shody and
Cody
some more,
Shody.
some more news crews. I know this is a D&D podcast, but we love those guys. If any of you guys want to be on a D&D podcast, hit us up.
Please.
Now, usually when someone says Gorgon, it is referring to the monstrous sisters with snakes for hair. There is Stheno, Uriel, and most famously Medusa, who all come from Greek mythology. However, as we stated, the Gorgon in D&D mythology is a completely different creature. Yet, we can still see a resemblance of this creature in other Greek myths, okay? So, not Medusa, but still Greek, okay? So, this bull-like creature that we are looking for actually first appears in the story of the Golden Fleece, specifically in a trial that was given to the main protagonist, Jason, as in Jason and the Argonauts. Jason must retrieve the Golden Fleece from King Aedes in order to win back his throne, but King Aedes doesn't want to give up his prized possession easily and gives Jason a trial. The fleece is guarded...
Trials on trials.
That's right. Only trials. It's just trials, from here on down. The fleece is guarded by 3 monsters, the first of which are a pair of creatures called Calcotaroi, which Jason must yoke, which that means put a plow harness on. Right, he's not throwing eggs at them. He must yoke in order to plow the plain of Ares. Now, the Calcotauroi are described as massive bulls with bronze hooves and bronze mouths that also breathe fire.
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Very Greek. In the story, they were a gift given to Hades by Hephaestus, who is the god of fire, blacksmithing, and craftsmanship. So you know these bulls are well built. While fire-breathing bulls sent by the gods do sound like something that Gary Gygax would include in his bestiary, and while they are similar to our D&D Gorgon, it's still not exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, not exactly.
Not quite. As Jayde will attest to, this is where we got stuck in our research until we came across a fantastic article by someone who has a lot of authority on the subject. F. Wesley Schneider, who was editor of the Monster Ecology series in Dragon Magazine and the editor-in-chief for Dragon, Monster Ecology's bestiary, and who is now the author and editor of many Pathfinder modules and bestiaries, shed some light on where the difference between Gorgons and Medusa come from in the world of D&D. Schneider shares this insight on Tumblr, of all places, in a blog post addressing another user's question about our main topic. Right? Anybody out there who's saying that Tumblr is useless, all right?
Yeah, you know our research goes deep when we're pulling articles from Tumblr.
Yes. Which thank you, F. Wesley Schneider, for posting these to Tumblr.
Thank you.
We
It
appreciate
helped
that.
a lot.
So in his post, Schneider speculates that, like most of us fantasy nerds, Gary Gygax got a lot of his ideas from the Greeks, the Romans, and the English. Categorizing and chronicling animals has always been a popular endeavor for scholars, but the most established bestiaries came from the times of the ancient Greeks and from the English medieval and Renaissance periods. Schneider points to one book in particular. Edward Topsell's real-life bestiary, you're going to love this, The Historie of Four-Footed Beasts.
Gotta love Old English.
Yeah,
gotta love it.
It's such a mess. I love it so much. This was published in 1607, so it should come as no surprise that this massive 824-page tome categorizes animals in great detail. From dogs to pigs to even armadillos, or Guinean, as they are called in the book. However, because of the limitations of travel during this time period, scholars like Topsell often had to rely on works by previous scholars. As Schneider points out, Topsell credits a lot of his entries to two ancient Roman scholars, Claudius Aelianus, or Alien. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but I'm just going to go with Alien.
Sounds cooler.
Yeah, it sounds cooler. And Gaius Plinius Secundus, or Pliny the Elder, many of you will know that one, and their bestiaries on the nature of animals and the natural history, respectively. The inclusion of these ancient bestiaries resulted in, let's say, more mythical creatures being included into contemporary bestiaries. I personally blame them for Sasquatch, but that's just my own headcanon. Right.
We'll
there.
have to dive into that sometime
Yeah,
later.
we'll dive into that sometime later. In Topsell's book, we can find the inclusion of mythical creatures such as the unicorn, manticore, sphinx, dragon, lamia, hydra, and of course, our Gorgon. Surprisingly, even though the Gorgon has such a small section in between the two larger sections about goats and hares, of all things.
They're such long sections. I'm like, what do you have to say about bunnies? I don't understand.
It's actually the main beast featured on the front cover page of the book, right? So imagine you're going to check out this tome, right? This bestiary of the natural world, and here is this ridiculous looking thing on the cover. Let me paint you a picture here. In the section on the Gorgon, Topsell describes it as a quote strange Libyan beast end quote. That is a fearful and terrible beast to behold. It hath high and thicka eyelids.
Like that. Sorry, English majors out there.
Yeah, sorry. I'll be normal. I'll be normal for a second. It's hard for me. I'll be normal for a second. It hath high and thick eyelids, eyes not very great, but much like an ox or bugles, but all fiery blowdy, which neither look directly forward, nor yet upwards, but continually down to the earth, and therefore are called in Greek katobleponta. From the crown of their head down to their nose, they have a long hanging mane, which maketh them to look fearfully. There are entirely too many E's in this version of fearfully, by the way. It eateth deadly and poisonful herbs. And if at any time he see a bull or other creature, whereof he is afraid, he presently causeth his mane to stand upright, and being so lifted up, opening his lips and gaping wide, sendeth forth of his throat a certain sharp and horrible breath, which infecteth and poisoneth the air above his head, so that all living creatures which draw in breath of that air are grievously afflicted thereby. Once again, too many E's in this grievously. Losing both voice and sight, they fall into lethal and deadly convulsions.
You had trouble reading that, Andy, but like actually reading the text when they used to write F's as S's, I'm like, I can't read this straight.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read the original one, folks, and it was rough.
Yes, thank you endlessly to Jayde for sourcing this in a language I could kind of decipher. So additionally in this section, Topsell speculates on the origin of the Gorgon and its relation to other similar creatures such as the Medusa, makes sense, the cockatrice, bit of a stretch, and the catoblepon. Topsell waves away these comparisons by saying that Medusa was actually the name of the captain of a group of Amazonian women who lived on the islands of Gorgodion. And the poets who wrote the story of Perseus exaggerated the snake hair in their retelling of the battle. I love this idea. It's like, well, yes, of course there was this, giant muscle mommy who could turn people to stone, but the snake hair, okay.
A little much, yeah.
Let's be realistic.
I have dragons and I have unicorns in here, but snake hair, back up.
We're trying to be realistic here. Come on. Topsell states that the catoblepon, which Pliny first described in his bestiary, is simply another word for gorgon, because katoblepos in Greek means, quote, to look downwards. And the gorgon is continually looking downwards. Because of this description of the Gorgon always looking downwards, Topsell wonders if the Gorgon is more like the cockatrice, in that its stare is the deadly weapon, and not its noxious breath. However, for these speculations, Topsell refers back to Pliny and the other scholars who say otherwise. As we can see, dear listener, the lore for the Gorgon is a little bit of a mess.
Very messy. Messy bitch.
Yeah, it's a messy bitch. For the kids, it's a messy bitch. It's a mix of names and attributes from all kinds of mythical creatures, and yet somehow still ended up in Dungeons & Dragons. But do we know that Gary Gygax used Topsell's bestiary specifically as an inspiration? Unfortunately, there aren't any notes or reference pages for the white box volumes, so we'll never know.
Us who list our sources on Patreon for free. Go now, subscribe. Shameless plug. Over.
Go subscribe. As Schneider points out in his article, not only is the description of Topsell's Gorgon very similar to Gygax's, but there are other creatures in Topsell's book that appear in early D&D. For example, the Lamia in Topsell's book is described as a centaur-like creature having the upper body of a woman, the hind legs of a goat, the front legs of a bear, and is covered in scales like a dragon.
Another messy bitch.
Another messy bitch. That's right. All kinds of horrifying.
By the way, when we get to this creature, Topsell really talks a lot about the breast of that creature. It's a lot. And when we get to that, I'm going to refer back to Topsell and be like, all right, prepare yourselves.
Yes. Messy bitches writing about boobs. So this description is unique to Topsell. The gratuitous description of boobs aside. Because the original story and the later adaptations and interpretations of the Lamia usually depicted her as a monster with the upper half of a beautiful woman and the lower half of a snake. As far as we could find so far, there are no other sources that depict the Lamia the way Topsell does. So, guess which depiction Gary Gygax chose? In first edition AD&D, where the Lamia makes its appearance, it is depicted as having the upper half of a woman, the hind legs of a goat, and the front legs of a lion. Case closed as far as I'm concerned.
Proof is in the pudding, folks.
Proof is in the pudding. But do you need more proof? Well, check out Topcell's section called Of a Wild Beast in the Newfound World called Sue. And then check out the description of the Sue monster, aptly named, in Eldritch Wizardry, and tell me they're not the same, right? Go do it. And actually, if you think they're not the same, please leave a comment. We'd love to know your diatribes on how they're different, but make sure you cite your sources.
Cite your sources.
Cite your sources, please. This is a scholarly podcast. We're very serious here. All right, so there you have it, folks. The Gorgon's origin is solved. But Jayde, why don't you tell us what Gary Gygax did with the Gorgon after finding it in Topcell's book?
I'd love to. Well, as we mentioned, Gorgons do appear in the first white box set of D&D in Volume 2 booklet, Monsters and Treasure. They are described as, quote, bull-like monsters that have scales of iron covering their hides and a breath which is capable of turning to stone those who are within its 6-inch range, end quote.
Mm-hmm.
An adventuring party had a 50% chance of encountering 1 to 4 Gorgons either in their lair or as a wandering monster. What they lack in armor class, though, which is a 2, they make up for speed and attack, with a movement speed of 12 inches and a hit dice of 8. Compare this to, say, our goblin friends, who have a armor class of 6, but a speed of 6 inches and a hit dice of only 1 to 1.5. So if your party of adventurers live long enough to defeat a Gorgon, they get a pretty hefty reward. A 5% chance of getting thousands of copper, a 8.25% chance of getting thousands of gold, 10% chance of getting gems and jewelry, and a 30% chance of finding thousands of silver, or any 3 magic items and 1 scroll.
In the extremely high-risk, high-reward system of first edition, I could see this giving more seasoned parties something to really sit down and weigh out, right? Here's this kind of terrifying thing, but if your DM's like, well, if you beat this thing, you get three magic items in the scroll. That's a really big deal. Magic items were a very big deal in first edition. You were happy if you got a +1 sword. This is like at least 3 of those, maybe. So yeah, go fight it, maybe, or die. I don't know.
Or die.
Or
It's
die.
fine.
Or die. Yeah.
So the white box set is not the only place that Gorgons appear in Zero D&D. They also appear in a pivotal supplement called Eldritch Wizardry by Gary Gygax, of course, and Brian Bloom, published in 1976. Eldritch Wizardry is extremely significant to the lore of D&D because it is the first place that we see psionics.
Yes.
Psionics is that more sci-fi kind of magic ability. So rather than invoking, traditional wizards and the weave and such, this is sci-fi magic. And it has sci-fi magic, the astral and ethereal plane, and introduces creatures like demons and the demon princes, Demigorgon and Orcus, for the first time.
Oh man, that's
Mhm.
huge. No more
Yeah.
just sword and sorcery. Now it's like even scarier because telepathy and mind reading. Ooh. And demons.
Lots of demons. Lots of demons. As the foreword of Eldritch Wizardry stated, D&D was known for its unique rule sets, but the original white box set was just not cutting it anymore. It put a lot of pressure on the DM to come up with new and exciting scenarios. For people who've probably read the rules like 10 times over. I mean, these books are not very big. They're like, 30 pages for each booklet. So this, like I said, this supplement was huge, and it introduced so many new things for the DM to include. Eldritch Wizardry was a chance for the game designers at TSR to add in a whole new set of rules for magical combat, including new subclasses with new abilities, spells, monsters, and treasure. They
Treasure.
also introduced a new subclass. It's our favorite naturey friends, the druids.
Yay, druids.
Druids were originally introduced as monsters in previous supplement, Greyhawk, which added new rules, alternative rulings, and other new monsters. But in Eldritch Wizardry, they are now a subclass of cleric that is available for players to choose from.
I did not know that. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and I assume this was to give more variety of choices for clerics, since in Eldritch Wizardry they add in the ability for clerics, magic users, and even fighting men, which was the classic class of just fighting men.
No
But
fighting women.
these
Mm-mm.
no
No
fighting
wizards.
men. No.
Only fighting
Yeah,
men.
so clerics, magic users, and fighting men were able to use psionics. And then they added in druids and monks, who were both cleric subclasses that can't use psionics. So
Mm.
I think this, gives those players who don't want to play with psionics a new option that won't leave them feeling left out.
Mhm. Yeah, well, that makes sense, right? I'm a monk. I want to punch things. I don't really want to think too much about it. Just let me punch. Let
Which
me
is so
punch.
funny because I usually associate monks with psionics in some way
Yeah,
nowadays.
I blame anime.
um Players who do choose to play with psionics are given interesting abilities that affect the minds of other creatures, as well as allows them to interact with the ethereal and the astral plane, both of which seem to be different states of being that interlap with the prime plane. It's kind of confusing how they
Mhm.
explain it.
Mhm.
But so to enter the ethereal plane, a player must either have the etherealness ability, which can only be used by magic users,
Okay.
or they must have a potion, or it's rather an oil of etherealness that is rubbed on one's skin, and
Okay.
this allows them to phase into the ethereal plane by
Mm.
altering the body's vibrations to match those of that different plane. It's real
Mm.
strange.
Yeah. Jade, there's just a Githyanki joke somewhere out there, right? About the puny residents of the material plane needing to get all oiled up to allow their body vibrations to access the plane ethereal.
Oh no, what are you saying?
I think this really explains Lae'zel's revulsion and then attraction to Tav and BG3, all oiled up, resonating with the planes.
Yeah, podcast listeners, you can't see this, but I have a very large bat ready to bonk Andy with.
Yeah, they
Horny
go
bonk.
bonk
No.
bonk.
Oh man. Okay. The astral projection is the other ability, which is similar to the astral spell and can be used by all the main player classes, fighting men, magic users, and clerics, including druids and monks.
Okay.
Using astral projection, beings can project their astral form to some distance. They are invisible to those who cannot see the astral plane, and can use magic to affect those in the prime plane, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and the movement distance in the astral plane depends on your mastery of the ability of astral projection. So, for example, the highest level at the 10th level mastery allows the possessors to quote project into space at the speed of light.
Damn. Lift off. They zooming.
Yeah, just bye.
Yeah. See ya. Gotta go fast.
But there is a downside to actually we did just see the Sonic 3 movie and they do go to space.
Damn. Didn't know Sonic and Knuckles and Tails were 10th level astral projectors. Today I learned.
They're actually monks, yeah.
Yeah, they're all monks.
Well, actually not monks because they can't.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Not monks. Except for maybe Knuckles.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. Yeah, but there is a downside to astral projection, and it's that while someone is astral projecting, their body is tethered to their prime physical body via a silver cord.
Hmm.
And if this cord is broken or one of the bodies is killed, then they die.
Ah,
That's it. Yeah, end game.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a
So
problem.
yeah. So, as the passage states, the danger for astral projection and etherealness is twofold. First, those in the astral and ethereal planes are subject to a psychic wind, it has a small chance of blowing, but this can be especially disastrous for those who are astral projecting.
That sounds bad.
Um, it's it, so the Listen to this. So, depending on how far the astral body is from its physical body, there's a higher chance of psychic wind being there.
Oh, it's smart
Uh,
wind. Don't know.
if a player is hit with this psychic wind, there is a 2 to 20% chance, and the percentage goes down as you master astral projection. Makes sense. Um, but of the astral body being blown back into the physical body, which creates a like extreme mental disorientation to the point where the player can lose 1 to 100 in session days of consciousness.
Oh, damn. So if you're not Sonic, like that's gonna knock you out.
Yeah, you just snap back to reality, and that's it.
That's it. You wake up 100 days later, like, how am I doing? And people are like, oh, we thought you were dead
Oh,
for
you're
100
you're dead.
days. Oh, that sounds bad.
Oh.
Am I Sonic yet? Anyways.
But there's also an extremely small chance, 1 to 8% going down with mastery level, of the psychic wind blowing the astral body away so quickly that it snaps the silver cord and kills the player.
Woo, woo,
Yeah, even worse.
woo. Yeah, damn.
Could you imagine playing to this point where you've like somewhat mastered astral projection and then just all of a sudden, boop, your character's dead. Sorry, the wind blew it away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially in like first edition, right? It's like I spent all this gold. I spent all this
Mhm.
time, right? I have fought demon princes and demigods, and I got killed by the fucking wind in space. That's either like really cool, good job, DM, or I'm quitting this
Oh,
game forever.
no. It was a blustery day.
Yeah. Getting Winnie the
Oh
Pooh'd,
no.
but in the worst way. Jesus. It's horrible.
Oh man, yeah, it's scary. But so a safer way to do it is for those who go into the ethereal plane. The consequences are somewhat less dire if the player is hit by this psychic wind. There's actually only a 1% chance of the wind hitting. And if it does, then the player's chances of becoming lost on the ethereal plane is
Mm.
doubled. And they will remain lost for an amount of time decided by a dice roll.
So plane shift when you can, kids. I promise it's safe.
It's safer, much safer. But of course, the psychic wind is not the only thing the players have to worry about when they're traveling through the plains.
Of course.
Because players are not the only ones who gain new psionic abilities.
Oh dear God.
Yep, Eldritch Wizard. If you get an ability, the DM gets an ability. That's
That's-
always. Yep.
It's only fair. It's only fair.
It's only fair.
It's only
Yeah.
fair.
So, Eldritch Wizardry adds new creatures and even updates other existing creatures to be able to use psionic abilities and affect those within the astral and ethereal planes. An example of these new monsters would be the Kirin, which are extremely intelligent, cloud-like horses that can travel between all the planes.
Huh. Well, thank goodness they're good.
Yeah, they are good. They're extremely smart. I feel like they would be really sassy. You'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you can't travel through the plains, you idiot."
Yeah. You idiot. You scrub. You nerd. You deserve to be on the ground. Unlike me, the Keyrin. Shut up, Barbara.
But there are other creatures that live strictly in one plane or the other. An example of this would be the Thought Eaters. They're these horrid skeletal platypus-like creatures that live on the ethereal plane and feed on the thoughts of their prey, both within the ethereal plane and sometimes the physical plane.
Oh no, sometimes the physical is the worst part. No, stay in space, you weirdos.
Yeah, I saw a picture of these. I'm like, why are they platypi? I don't understand. But they're really creepy.
Yeah. One designer saw
Uh,
platypus was like, that just eats your thoughts. I don't want that.
Honestly, it does because you just start thinking about a platypus and you're like, why is it a bird and a mammal and it swims? I don't understand.
It lays eggs. It has a poison foot. I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
it truly eats your thoughts.
Must eat your thoughts.
Now, I'm telling you all of this about, the ethereal and astral planes and these monsters because one of the creatures that get updated in Eldritch Wizardry is our Gorgon. The
Mhm.
Gorgon is actually a creature who can it's oddly described, but it seemingly can exist or at least see within all three planes at once
Terrifying.
and are able to affect creatures in all three planes no matter what plane they're on.
Oh, more terrifying.
Yeah. So yeah, the Gorgons were one of those creatures that gained the psionic ability, and which again is extremely deadly to those traveling through the planes, but especially to those traveling through astral projection,
Mm.
because if the Gorgon's breath attack successfully manages to turn a player into stone, then that silver cord is snapped,
Oh.
and the player dies. A lot of dying in the
I was
astral
going to
plane.
say, maybe just don't go to the astral plane. Maybe just let the GIF have that one.
Yeah, it seems like a like last resort kind of
Mhm.
thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Just don't go there.
Yeah, so if similarly, if the Gorgon's breath turns a player in the ethereal plane to stone, then that player is lost in the ethereal plane until someone can either see them or go into the plane and find them.
That's worse.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
That's worse.
Yeah, so this edition made Gorgons a lot scarier than they already are, and you're essentially participating in the running of the bulls, but even trying to escape to a whole nother plane of existence, not gonna keep you safe.
Now, are you a DM who needs a holiday one shot? Might we suggest hitting them with the running of the Gorgons? The players won't survive. Anyways, moving on to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. In this edition, the Gorgon appears in the Monster Manual for AD&D. There aren't many changes mechanically between the first version of the Gorgon and this version of the Gorgon. Players now have a 40% chance of encountering a Gorgon in its lair, instead of a 50% chance. All right, 10% better. The lore states that they, quote, prefer the fastness of a wilderness or dreary caverns for habitation, end quote, giving a little more context as to where the players should expect to run into one. This Gorgon retains its ability to see into the ethereal and astral planes. Very dangerous, as we said.
Scary.
Very scary. As well as affect beings in both of them with its breath weapon. Also very scary. Which, coincidentally, it can use up to 4 times a day. And favors over any of its attacks. This metal bowl is still hell-bent on turning you to stone, dear player. Now, there is a Dragon Magazine article in issue number 97 by the creator of the Forgotten Realms, Ed Greenwood, titled The Ecology of Gorgons, that gives some more background detail on Gorgons than the short blurb that we get in the Monster Manual. It was a running joke in the D&D lore that Greenwood would have regular conversations with a character he created, the wizard Elminster, the casual, in his kitchen.
Yeah, just super casual conversations with the most powerful wizard in the history of the Forgotten Realms. Possibly the chosen champion of Mistra, the goddess of magic. Just casual.
Yeah, super casual. So what does that say about Ed Greenwood, Elminster's creator?
That means he was the real bad guy all along.
Oh my god. Every player up to this point has lost.
We have to fight Ed Greenwood.
We have to fight Ed Greenwood. Ed Greenwood, if you're listening, we're not going to fight you. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you for all of your posts.
Yes, we love your stuff.
Yes,
keep making
we
more.
love your lore. Yes, keep it up, please. Okay, so the Dragon Magazine article is a mix between humorous banter between Ed Greenwood and Elminster, and a biological study of the diet and habits of Gorgons presented in the journal of one Jariel Philipper, adventurer and naturalist. We get fun little tidbits of lore, like how Gorgon breath apparently smells like stewed cabbage, and that they are terrified of rust monsters. Yeah, it makes sense. If you're made of metal, rust monster's gonna maybe present a problem. My personal favorite Elminster passage, when he's talking about how much he hates Gorgons, goes, and I quote, "I asked him what he would do if he met a Gorgon, and he indicated a piece of jewelry around his neck, half hidden by his beard. This is a thing of magic. A necklace of missiles," he said.
That was so corny.
Yeah. It's like,
but also something Elminster would say.
It's like, Elminster with the Glock, though. Okay. What I really love about this article is that even though the journal is presented as being from a first-person perspective of an adventurer, right, in the setting, the article's footnotes, which Greenwood writes as saying were penned by Elminster himself, use extremely precise tabletop measurements and terms when referring to the Gorgon's petrifying AoE breath. Okay, listen to this. Any creature enveloped by the cloud of vapors, which billows out with some force to feel a conical area half an inch wide at the Gorgon's maw to a maximum diameter of 2 inches and a maximum length of 6, within 2 segments and parenthetical, must save versus petrification to avoid being turned to stone, another parenthetical, which takes effect in 1 to 4 segments thereafter, and is permanent unless somehow counteracted at a later time, end parenthetical.
Maybe Elminster is attempting to write in a way that he thinks Greenwood would understand, you know?
Honestly, in that case, I respect it, and I think proves that Elminster is indeed the true champion of Mistra. Now, what's really interesting to me is that this article specifically states that Gorgons don't eat the victims that they petrify. Listeners, I want you to keep this in mind for later. This is important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we would not be doing a proper lore dive if we didn't include a weird offshoot of the humble Gorgon. May I present the Gorgamera?
You can't be serious.
Oh, but I can. Get a load of this. It's a chimera, but with a Gorgon head instead of a goat head.
What?
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure what whimsical wizard is responsible for this ridiculous magical monstrosity, but it's basically a chimera that has a petrifying breath attack and a fire breath attack, because who doesn't love breath attacks?
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise! The description can be found in AD&D's Monster Manual 2, which was published in 1983, and states that the Gorgamera has the hindquarters and head of a gorgon, the forequarters and head of a lion, and the midbody, head, and wings of a red dragon. The gorgon parts have the same metallic blue coloring as a typical gorgon, so it's basically just a cooler looking, more dangerous version of the normal chimera. Yay!
Yay!
Yay! More player death. Oh, yay!
So much death.
So much player death. That's right. For the children. For the children.
For the children. Yeah. Moving on to AD&D 2nd edition. The Gorgon first appears in 1989 Mistress Compendium Volume 2. Much of the combat and stat sections for the Gorgon are largely the same. Same hit dice, movement, same number of breath weapons, yada yada. But instead, 2E focused more on adding in details to the ecology of the Gorgon. Unfortunately for Ed Greenwood, much of his headcanon on the Gorgon's ecology was largely ignored, and in fact, a lot of the information in Dewey are the complete opposite of what he originally wrote.
It's a little insulting, but okay.
Well, to the greatest wizard of the world.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes sense, and now I'll explain why. But the only thing this edition did keep from Ed Greenwood was the terrifying fact that the Gorgon can stand up on its hind legs for some reason.
Oh God, the 2-legged bull is real, and it can hurt you.
Starts punching at you with its hooves. It's scary.
I didn't realize, my players were doing a boxing match with a horrible metal bull. Who knew?
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of the stuff was changed in the Gorgon and 2E. Rather than being omnivorous, feeding on carrion, vegetables, and other mammals, avoiding using their petrifying breath so that they're able to eat their prey, as Greenwood stated, are now believed to eat living statues that they turn to stone. Gorgons will mainly eat elk and deer, but will not hesitate to eat other meat. In 2E, they are also apparently savage hunters that will pursue their prey endlessly with their acute sense of smell until at least one of them keels over from exhaustion, which usually happens to the prey almost 75% of the time. It says that specifically.
We want to specifically tell you that the Gorgon, when it kills things, it does it very well. 75% of the time.
Next, rather than having a hoard of treasure that they bait prey into coming into their lairs with, as Greenwood said. The Gorgon now is described as having no use for treasure, as it is less clever than Greenwood's Gorgon, and the random gems or jewelry on Gorgon's prey are either petrified along with the victim or is found in Gorgon's droppings after it eats the living statue.
Okay. Okay.
Makes me wonder if the prey somehow becomes unpetrified when the Gorgon is eating them, because then how do the gems and jewelry become unpetrified droppings? Makes you think.
It
Makes
just
you
makes you
think.
think. That's true. That's true.
And this section actually does ponder this as well. It states, quote, "It is believed that Gorgons can actually devour living statues they create with their breath weapon, whether their flat iron teeth break up and pulverize the stone, or their saliva returns the victim to flesh while they eat, is a matter for conjecture," end quote. I'm definitely leaning towards the saliva theory.
Yeah, see, this is interesting to me because in that Dragon Magazine article, there was a mention of an organ inside the Gorgon's head that produced its petrifying gas. So maybe the same organ can neutralize the effects of the petrification by way of the salivary glands. Maybe there's a potential quest hook there for crafty DMs who are listening. Maybe a wizard who is looking for components to create an anti-petrification potion is willing to pay good coin for organic compounds.
Now, again, because it's an audio medium, you can't see this, but Andy is looking directly at the camera while bouncing his eyebrows up and down.
This is my sneaky DM face.
It is truly terrifying to think about when it's just like, oh, the saliva unpetrifies. Do the living statues feel that? I wonder.
Ooh, that's more horror than I want to think about. Well done,
Very
Jade. Well done.
um, Gorgons in this edition, rather than having a mortal enemy in the rust monster, which is unfortunate because I like that part. But
nice.
now it only has two enemies, which are other Gorgons and humanoids. The Gorgon community is described more like a pride of lions in that there is one male bull and a group of 2 to 3 females, and then young male calves are raised up until the age of 2, and then they're kicked out where they have to go live on their own and either make a new pack or take over another pack. And this creates a lot of tension between the rogue bulls and other established packs that can end in a fight of dominance.
Very lion-like. Okay.
Yeah. Finally, the last bit of information that's the complete opposite of Greenwood's is the fact that Gorgon's blood and its hide are actually extremely valuable. Gorgon blood can protect an area from intruders coming from the ethereal or astral plane.
Okay, that's huge.
Yeah. And ground Gorgon scales can be used in the ink to create a protection from petrification scroll.
Okay.
And lastly, unlike Greenwood, who states that Gorgon armor may fetch the seller a few copper pieces, in this edition, the hide of the Gorgon can create a fine set of scale mail that gives the wearer +2 saving throws against petrifications or flesh to stone spells.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's huge.
Yeah, another high risk, high reward kind of situation. And I gotta say, no offense to the wizard himself, but I kind of prefer this ecology of the Gorgon. Greenwood kind of made the Gorgon seem more sentient than it really is, having its treasure bait prey and killing just to kill. And maybe that's a little bit of bias coming from El Minister, who understandably has a vendetta against Gorgon.
One killed his dog, Jade. I don't blame him.
I'm not blaming him. But also, this, 2E, this description of the Gorgon just doesn't feel right, and the 2E version just makes more sense in my mind. The 2E version leans more into the animalistic nature of the Gorgon. It's a carnivore that kills, eats, sleeps, repeats.
It's the circle of life.
Moving on. Later in 2E, the Gorgon appears once again in the 1993 Mistress manual, but Other than the first paragraph, the rest of the section on the Gorgon is basically verbatim from the Monstrous Compendium.
Mm-hmm.
The first paragraph gives us more details on the appearance of the Gorgon, stating that they are, quote, monstrous black bulls with hides of thick metal scales. And the artwork in this manual is definitely an upgrade from the compendium, both of which still pretty terrifying.
Makes sense, right? Scary black bull, it's real. It can hurt you. Now,
It could stand on hind legs.
that's right. So we're moving on to 3rd edition.
All right, you know what time it is. Let's say it together. 3rd edition goes.
Wait. I might
What?
be about to say something controversial here. But I'm sorry to say that 3rd edition Gorgon does not go hard.
Blasphemy, Andy.
Now,
Blasphemy.
don't get me wrong. The artwork, as always, for the Gorgon is cool as hell. But, unfortunately, in 3rd edition and 3.5, the Gorgon does not get as much love as it did previously. Having only, it's a bit of a disappointment, but only having small blurbs in each of the edition's respective monster manuals, the lore for the Gorgon does not get the same intense upgrade that we are used to seeing for previous monsters that we've covered. We do get a more physical description of the Gorgon than we have in previous editions, so that's something. 3rd edition's monster manual, published in 2000, describes the Gorgon as a large magical beast resembling a bull with large black metallic scales and silver horns, right? So far, we're keeping consistency. It is also described as having burning red eyes that, quote, give the impression of 2 hot coals set between its heavy brow, end quote. Okay, I like that.
Come on, you can't tell me that's not hard.
That's getting there. We learned that a typical adult Gorgon is about 6 feet tall and 8 feet long, right? This is reinforcing the size, right? The bigness of this thing. Combat-wise, it has a challenge rating of 8 with an armor class of 18 and 68 hit points. In terms of combat, some interesting changes were made, including upping the Gorgon's breath weapon to a max of 5 times a day rather than just 4. All right. However, 3.5 took out the Gorgon's ability to see and use their breath weapon to affect those in the astral or ethereal plane. Yeah, it's just not as scary. Now it's just like any other material plane-bound metallic bowl that breathes a petrifying substance.
Very, very plain, very boring.
Yes, very boring, very boring. The Gorgon also received a regular melee attack called Gore and a special attack called Trample, which can be used on small or smaller creatures, and does 1d8 plus 7 points of damage. So I guess if you're a halfling or a gnome, you're gonna have a bad time. Otherwise, Lore-wise, there are some tiny additions, including stating that Gorgons are fond of rocky areas and feel especially at home in labyrinths. Similar to previous lore, Gorgons can appear alone, in a pack, in a pair, in 2 to 4. But now 3rd edition has added that they now can appear in a herd of 5 to 13. That's a lot of Gorgons.
13?
That's a lot of Gorgons.
Oh my god. Okay. Now you can't tell me that doesn't go hard.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, with a challenge rating of 8 for a group of level 8 adventurers, one Gorgon might be a little challenging, but a whole herd of CR8 Gorgons, you're done. You're done.
Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to see why you think they still go hard. But hear me out. The lore also states that Gorgons are extremely aggressive, attacking anything that enters their territory on sight and without mercy. It is impossible to calm a Gorgon, let alone try to domesticate one. All right? Okay. In 3.5, they do up the ante a little bit. The Gorgon stays as a level 8 challenge rating, but its AC is raised to 20. Its HP is now up to 85, and it does gain dark vision, which, makes sense for a creature that enjoys living in dark labyrinths. It also gains a plus 17 to its grapple roll, so good luck trying to hold this thing down. The rest of 3.5's text, once again, it's verbatim from 3rd edition's text, other than the additional tidbit about the Gorgon's weight being 4,000 pounds. To put that in real-world context, getting hit by a Gorgon would do as much damage as getting hit by a car.
Lord.
Yeah, casual. So the only other place that the Gorgon appears in 3.5 is in a supplemental manual called Dungeonscape, which gives additional tips on creating dungeon maps and encounters for your players. It's in this manual that the Gorgon appears as a guardian Gorgon. The guardian Gorgon is not a tamed creature per se, but its territorial nature can be used to guard entrances or treasure in a dungeon. In addition to the Gorgon's natural abilities, the Guardian Gorgon is given abilities that allow it to locate intruders more quickly. So that bumps our Guardian Gorgon up to a CR 9 from the normal CR 8. And on top of dark vision and low light vision, it also gets blind sense, which allows a creature to use smell and hearing to pinpoint the location of an unseen creature within 30 feet if they have line of effect to that creature. Not line of sight, line of effect. Yay, AoE passives. For monsters. The unseen attacker still has total concealment, and the non-invisible creature does not get its dexterity bonus added to its armor class against the unseen attacker. So it's not broken, but still not great if you're on the attack. Honestly, I think this is a little bit of overkill considering that the Guardian Gorgon has a plus 17 to its listen skill and a plus 16 to its spot skill, which both of these would basically just be perception in 5th edition. Compared to a regular Gorgon, which only has a plus 9 and a plus 8 respectively. If this thing's looking for you, it's probably going to find you. On top of all this, the Guardian Gorgon also gets special illuminated eyes.
Oh.
Yeah, which are basically built-in flashlights that have a range of 60 feet.
It truly is a car now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, what is that? Beep, beep, motherfucker. It's the Guardian Gorgon. It's for the children. The Guardian Gorgon also gets a feat called Blind Fight, which allows a creature to use their senses to fight invisible creatures. Mechanically, this allows the non-invisible creature to re-roll if they miss their melee attack against an invisible enemy, right? Today, we'd say it's just you get advantage, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the invisible attacker does not get an attack bonus to hit if they're doing a melee attack. They do, however, get a bonus for ranged attacks, right? So if you're invisible and you're trying to sneak up on a Guardian Gorgon, you're going to have a bad time.
Bad idea. Anyway.
Yeah. Maybe don't do that. This essentially cancels out the disadvantage of blind sense, making the Guardian Gorgon able to see everything. I kind of wonder if this is a nod to previous editions where the Gorgon could see into the ethereal in astral planes, even though it lost those. The designers were like, okay, well, maybe if we make a harder one, it can still kind of do that, just in a different way. So I guess while the Gorgon lore-wise does not get the same treatment as we're used to for other creatures, that's not really what the Gorgon needed. I think it really needed a serious update to its stat block.
So Andy, can we say it?
We can say it.
Third edition goes hard.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to 4th edition. And now you all know 4th edition and I don't always get along, but I'm going to shock you once more by saying I liked 4th edition's changes.
Now it's my turn to gasp. Gasp!
I know, but listen to these cool changes it added. So the Gorgon only shows up on one page of 4th edition's Monster Manual, published in 2008. But the lore it gives is really unique. It is a unique twist on the Gorgon that we've already gotten to know so far. 4th edition's version of the Gorgon is now an elemental beast rather than a magical beast.
Okay.
And because of this, the lore states that elemental creatures or giants are able to tame the Gorgon and keep them as pets or mounts.
Okay, that's new. Okay.
And that in this version, the ecological lore kind of throws back to 1st and 2nd edition, where it states that wild Gorgons tend to live together in a herd of 3 to 7, with there being only one male and the rest females. Young males usually travel alone and in pairs until they are able to challenge a bull to become leader of the herd. So we bring that back in 4th edition.
Circle of life.
And as you all remember, 4th edition likes to make different versions of the creature with their own unique stat blocks. So this time we actually only get 2 species of the Gorgon. In this case, it's the Iron Gorgon and the Storm Gorgons.
Okay.
Yeah, Iron Gorgons are generally the same as we've seen in previous editions, down to even they use the same artwork a lot. So 3rd, 3.5, and 4th edition, same exact artwork for the
Okay.
Gorgon. They do not update it.
Interesting.
But the Iron Gorgon in this has unique abilities. So Iron Gorgons still have a very high HP and AC. In 4th edition, it's going to be 120 and 25
Woo!
respectively.
25 AC, man. Like, even
Yeah.
for 4th edition, like, that's still pretty considerable.
I don't even know how you get past that, but maybe 4th edition heads will be able to tell us.
Yeah. All those
But
extra buffs you get.
yeah, on top of that, the Gorgon gets to keep its gore and trample attacks, and of course its petrifying breath. But now does not have a limit on how many times it can be used.
Okay.
It doesn't specify, so assuming it can use it anytime, which is kind of crazy.
That's scary. Okay.
Yeah. The Iron Gorgon also gains a new attack called Earth Shaking Charge. It's a charging attack that does 2d10 plus 6 damage and can push a creature 3 squares and knock them prone. The Iron Gorgon also gains True Sight, which allows it to see invisible creatures within its line of sight in a specified range of 6 squares. This part's kind of confusing. The description is just it's just True Sight 6. And I read through some of the 4th edition rules, and I was like, 6 squares? Is that 6 by 6? Is that a cone? Is that a line? Why for you? I was just starting to like you. You know, why you gotta make it complicated?
Yeah. Can't you just tell us what it does? No, 6. Okay, 6.
Only 6.
Only 6.
But either way, so it also gains Earthwalk, which allows a creature to ignore difficult terrain that is the result of rubble, uneven stone, or earth. And finally, it gains immunity to being pushed, pulled, slid, petrified, and knocked prone. So you're not knocking this thing down.
No, see, I think that the addition of Earthwalk, I think it's a really nice touch. Because, traditionally going back through editions, Earthwalk was specifically a trait that creatures of elemental earth got. So, at least for 4th edition, that really cements in the Gorgon as being a creature of elemental earth. Also, if this thing, is tamed by, bigger, badder beasts, that's going to be a real problem as a chaff enemy. That you can't knock over, push back, grab. That Iron Gorgon is a problem.
Yeah, just sick your pet Gorgon on that.
Yeah.
Fine.
Bessie, get him!
But, Andy, if you think the Iron Gorgon is scary, the Storm Gorgon is 10 times worse.
Oh, no.
Literally. Its
no.
health and AC are double the Iron Gorgon's, going up to a whopping 248 and 42, respectively.
Jesus.
42 AC. I don't know how you're hitting that.
Wow. Yeah, we're getting into like dragon territory. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. Insane, yeah. And the bonuses to its initiative and other abilities goes up. It gains resistance to lightning and thunder damage. It has a flying speed of 10.
Casually flying Gorgon. That's good.
Just hovering across the earth.
Very normal.
And it also gains a lightning aura called Tempest Fury, which expands out 5. Again, I'm assuming this is 5 squares. And if a creature enters and starts its turn in the aura, it receives 20 lightning damage.
Jesus! Oh!
Yeah,
man.
So you can't even get near the Gorgon, let alone hit it.
Oh, man.
And for the Storm Gorgon, it replaces the Iron Gorgon's earth-shaking charge with mobile melee attack, which allows it to, quote, move up to half its speed and make 1 melee basic attack at any point during the movement. It does not provoke an opportunity attack when it moves away from this target. So basically, it's a hit and run.
Yeah, this thing's just a missile with a lightning aura. And 248 hit points. Jesus.
Yeah. It's just hit you with your car.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the real final boss car. Oh.
And then the Iron Gorgon's petrifying breath is replaced with the Storm Gorgon's own Storming Breath, which affects a greater range and does 2d10 plus 20 lightning and thunder damage.
Oh, well, that just makes you dead.
You're dead.
Yeah.
Uh, Lore-wise, it is said that Storm Titans like to keep domesticated herds
Oh, herds.
of Storm Gorgons.
Herds of missile cars. Okay.
For what purpose other than security? It doesn't say.
That's great.
So I'm assuming.
Yeah.
just,
Good luck.
love my pet Storm Gorgon. Just patting it.
Yeah. So he's so nice. So is your hair standing on end? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So for once, I actually like these changes. I enjoyed them. I think it makes sense to make the Gorgon an elemental beast rather than a regular or I guess magical one. The iron hide and the way it eats and moves and does everything, it just makes sense. And it also makes the Gorgon look even more intimidating than previous iterations.
Yeah.
Other than the Guardian Gorgon, of course.
Yeah, I'm scared of that Storm Gorgon. I know it's real and it can't hurt me, but I'm scared of it. Coming soon, maybe to a session near you. If you're any of my players listening, be afraid.
Yes. Get in there, get that Storm Gorgon.
That's right. Get in there, get that Storm Gorgon. Okay, so we're back in 5th edition now. The 5th edition Gorgon seems to be an amalgamation of all the other editions, taking the best pieces of lore and stat blocks and kind of combining them into one.
Okay, I like.
So in the 5th edition Monster Manual, published in 2014, as far as the appearance goes, Gorgons are still big metal bulls, although now their armor can range from, quote, steely black to gleaming silver, end quote.
Pretty.
Yeah. Pretty or terrifying, or pretty terrifying. We do get a throwback to the ecology of Gorgons, in that the creature secretes natural oils that lubricate its joints. Interestingly, this passage states that when a Gorgon is sick or too inactive, it becomes rusty and its plates grind and squeal. When it moves, kind of a nice touch.
Yeah.
Tactically, they like to charge at their foes and gore them with their sharp hooves, knocking them backwards, and then stomping them to death with their iron hooves.
Death all around.
Death, yeah, pretty on brand, honestly, for the Gorgon through the ages. If they're facing multiple enemies or feeling hungry, then they spray out a green gas from their nostrils in a 30-foot cone that can turn creatures to stone. Very nice 5th edition for saying the actual length and shape of this effect.
Instead of 6.
Instead of 6, right? If you just said 30, I'd lose it. Similar to the mechanics of 4th edition for the breath weapon, the first saving throw failure results in the victim being restrained, and then the second failure is what actually results in petrification, which can only be reversed with the Greater Restoration spell or similar magic. Yeah, the Gorgon, of course, is still a horrifying predator, with this time confirming the way the beast gets its nutrition. When it's snack time, the Gorgon smashes its petrified victims into pieces, then grinds up the rubble with its strong teeth. Delicious.
We finally have an answer to that question. Is it saliva or is it just eating the rocks?
Yeah, it's eating rocks. Yummy.
Delicious.
Delicious. So unfortunately, we still don't see a return to the Gorgon being able to see or affect creatures on the ethereal plane.
Boo.
Yeah. I thought that was a nice touch previously. And on top of this, its stats don't give it anything like true sight to make up for it. It does have dark vision. So that's not nothing. But that being said, as usual, this thing is no pushover. It clocks in at a CR5 creature with an armor class of 19, a movement speed of 40 feet, and an average of 114 hit points with a max HP of 168. Keep in mind, CR5 creature. We keep the gore and trample attacks, which are now called hooves, and it also gets to keep its charge attack, which was introduced in 4th edition. This is now called a trampling charge, which allows the Gorgon to move at least 20 feet toward a creature and then hit it with its gore attack in the same turn. The target must succeed a DC 16 strength saving throw in order to not be knocked prone. If the target fails, it's knocked prone, and then the Gorgon can make one hooves attack against it as a bonus action.
Ugh. any player who fails their save is gonna have a bad time.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh
This
man.
thing is still very much a big metal missile. It's a car, but without, the built-in high
Yeah.
beams.
Finally, folks, we're here. We move on to 1D&D, and what do we expect for the future of the Gorgon? Um, right now we're recording this before the release of the latest monster manual,
Mhm.
so if you're hearing this after the release, don't be confused. Personally, I don't really see the Gorgon changing much.
Mhm.
It's a good mini boss that would be challenging to any player in either a maze or a forest. I like to see maybe a little more information on the ecology of the Gorgon, since 5th edition took a lot of the information out about herd side and preferred layers of the Gorgon. I think adding some of that back will kind of make the Gorgon complete, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Mhm.
And then overall, I don't really expect it to change. Um, and I also don't really expect it to be in the first monster manual. Sometimes it shows up in other monster manuals. I don't think it's gonna show up in this one. But I could be wrong, since it is kind of a unique opponent to throw at your party. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. I think personally, I think the name alone is still probably going to throw players off. Um, because everybody when they think Gorgon, they're like,
It
oh,
threw me off. It
yeah,
threw me off when you said it.
yeah, yeah. See the episode title. For that specifically. But honestly, I think the current version is a really good place to start mechanically. I really don't think it needs any changes. It'd be nice to see
Mm-mm.
the etherealness, right, or
Yeah.
the effect of its breath weapon on the ethereal plane come back just to make it a little bit scarier.
Mm.
But hopefully it will still.
At least some true side or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Hopefully it'll still remain right this tanky, boss monster, or later on, maybe a herd. Like you said, Jade, I'd like to see this return of this idea of Gorgon herds or families. Might be nice, especially for like lower level encounters, or encounters with herds. Maybe to have a stat block for a smaller Gorgon, like Gorgon
Hmm.
young.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe something like a Gorgon Pride leader, with a modified stat block.
Ooh.
Just throwing ideas out there. Which if the game designers don't do it, enterprising DMs will get
Hire
creative.
us.
Yeah. Just hire us. That's right. Subscribe to our Patreon. Also to drive home its niche as a boss monster, maybe we could get some lair actions.
Layer actions. Oh
Yeah.
my god, that'd be so fun.
Yeah, especially with the setting of the labyrinth, right? Like, come on.
Mm.
You can't tell me this thing doesn't have some, magical fuckery it can do in its lair. So,
Yeah.
that's what I'd kind of like to see. This brings us to the end of our lore dive on the Gorgon. It's not a Medusa-like creature, but an amalgamation of creatures that kind of became its own thing in the world of D&D.
Mhm.
Throughout all the editions, we've seen the Gorgon change from a terrifying beast to an even more horrifying beast. Though it only had small sections in each of the edition's monster manuals, it's that very simplicity that made it interesting. The Gorgon
Mhm.
is boiled down to its basest animal instincts. It is a unique carnivore that kills to eat and eats to kill. And yet, we can't help but be fascinated by its one-of-a-kind form and abilities. A metallic bowl that breathes petrifying vapor? Can't get any crazier than that. And now, it's time for our scenario. So I'd like for you to picture this. Rasheda's vision was suddenly hit with bright, warm sunlight. She squinted for a moment as she tried to get her bearings. The dense, seemingly endless maze of leaves and vines they had been trudging through had opened up into a clearing. A large stone structure stood silently in its center. Right, Grognak grunted, drips of sweat streaking across his blue-gray forehead. Looks like this is the place. Kentheo glanced back and forth between the structure and a notebook, his index finger quickly tracing its way across the lines of text as he mumbled to himself. Medium-sized stone edifice, above-ground structure belies size of subterranean construction, forward sight around the perimeter. He paused, gesturing at a few tents and canopies that had been erected around the structure. I dare say that our fearless leader is correct. Kentheo flashed the half-orc a triumphant smile. Grognak responded with a grunt. Our instructions were to find the dig team. There's not a soul in this camp, Rasheda said, as she scanned the tents. It doesn't look like anybody's been here for days. We must remember that these are archaeologists and researchers, Kenthiel replied, carefully closing the notebook. Gods know they can be prone to bury themselves in their work. Hopefully not too literally in this case. Brunwyn snorted. Aye, let's hope they haven't ruined anything while they've been down there. Rasheda sighed. A dwarf and an elf bonding over stone humor. Surely some bard somewhere had written better material than this. At any rate, our hapless scholars are sure to be found inside this temple. I imagine they're poring over their field notes or pondering the riddles of the ages as they munch on their hardtack, Kenthiel said, as he began walking towards the looming structure. For the life of me, I'll never figure out how they let Dolthane on this expedition. Friend of yours? Grognak asked, raising a bushy eyebrow. Yes, an old colleague from the academy. It's been decades since I've seen that fastidious fellow. And here I thought he'd spend the rest of his days surrounded by dusty tomes and carefully catalogued scrolls, Kenthiel chuckled. Hey now, Ken, you're a bit of a bookworm yourself, Brunwyn said, poking a playful elbow into his side. Yes, Kenthiel replied, with a slight grimace. Though they'd been magically mended, Rasheda could tell that his ribs were still sore from getting squeezed by that massive tentacle. If Grognak hadn't charged that huge creature and hacked Kenthiel out of its grasp, the elf would have had more to worry about than just a few broken ribs. Kenthiel's voice roused Rasheda from her thoughts. But I always saw the value of field research. Libraries and laboratories can only tell us so much about the world. Some of the best data can only be gathered by grabbing it. Or being grabbed by it. The only thing I want to grab is lunch, so let's find these quill pinchers and be done with it, Grognak said, as he began descending the stairs with Kenthiel and Brunwyn following a few paces behind him. Make sure you watch out for, yes, the traps. I learned me lesson last time. Rasheda sighed again, pausing as she caught something out of the corner of her eye. Something was engraved into the stones of the outside wall. A picture of a maze, to be precise. Her eyes narrowed. Oopteo. Rasheda could hear her grandmother's words echoing in her mind. If you are in the jungle and you see a maze, Mtoto, you solve it. End of story. If you don't, Oopteo will curse you with a year of bad luck. Rasheda paused. This is silly. Oopteo abandoned this land a century ago, she thought to herself. She looked at the maze again. It almost seemed as if it was staring at her, waiting impatiently to be solved. Rasheda let out a short huff, then walked over and traced her way through the maze with her finger. There. Keep your bad luck to yourself, she snapped, then made her way after her companions. The stone stairs went downwards for a bit before leveling out into a long stone tunnel. Rasheda blinked as she walked, her eyes trying to adjust to the quickly fading light. Everything all right back there, Shed? Brunwyn called. Fine, thanks. Just thought I saw something outside. Turned out to be nothing. Toward the end of the tunnel, the group could see what looked like torchlight flickering on the wall. See? I told you they'd be inside, Kenthiel said. It was too dark for Rasheda to see clearly, but she was sure he had that self-assured smirk on his face. Polite though he was, Kenthiel couldn't help but exhibit some of his elven haughtiness when he was right about something. As they drew closer, Rasheda could see a few small canvas canopies, illuminated by the light. Hold on, Grognak said, holding up a hand. Those aren't torches. Continual flame spells, Kenthiel laughed. Dolthane always was a competent spellweaver, even if he only used his spells for study. Winnie, what are you doing, Moina? Brunwyn was moving around the room, lighting the spent torches that were not lit with magic. Rasheda took one from a sconce and ran her fingers over it. It had been out for some time. What's it look like I'm doing? There's too dark in here for us. I mean for Shed. She needs to be able to look for clues. Rasheda knew that couldn't be the only reason Winnie was lighting the torches, but she appreciated the light nonetheless. Rasheda carefully scanned the room, taking detailed note of the makeshift studies constructed under the canopies. Large ornate trunks acted as tables, on which piles of scrolls, writing utensils, and half-eaten rations were scattered across. Rasheda noticed one scroll held open by an ink bottle, marked with a meticulous drawing of a stone statue. A note next to it read, "New?" While she puzzled over this note, Rasheda focused her attention on the rest of the room. Her eyes darted over to Grognak as he let out a whistle.
Well, well, well. Looks like those parchment scratchers found something after all. How much you think this'll fetch? I hear the merchant princes pay extra for fine detail.
He grinned as he pointed to a statue under one of the canopies. As she got closer, Rasheda could see that it depicted a kneeling figure, its hands outstretched. No, wait. Was it shielding its face? The figure's eyes were closed, its palm tilted downwards, as if looking away from an imaginary foe. Its mouth was open, its face locked in an eternal, silent scream. It's certainly detailed, but this seems a bit grotesque. Much of the older Chultan stoneworks are more symbolic than they are literal. Something feels off. She looked to the doorway, which opened to the darkness beyond. We have to go deeper. As they made their way into the next room, Rasheda could make out in the dim light cast by the torches behind them that this chamber was circular. The only doorway she could see was the one they were currently walking through. As Rasheda crossed the threshold behind her companions, she felt the floor under her feet lower ever so slightly. An audible click met her ears. The doorway quickly shut, a wall of stone snuffing out the light from the hallway. Rasheda blinked, trying to force her eyes to adjust.
Everyone's still in one piece,
Grognak asked. Rasheda and the others mumbled in confirmation. Suddenly, a hole opened in the ceiling, shining a ray of sunlight into the center of the room. Inside of the beam of light, a small dais rose up from the floor. On its top was a small maze. Standing next to the dais, illuminated by this new light source, was another statue. Its hand stretched out towards the adventurers, holding a piece of parchment. "Oh, that thing gave me a start!" Brunwyn cried, her hand clamped to her chest. "Seems those colleagues of yours are fond of playing a cruel trick or two." "I'm beginning to think," Kenfield breathed, as he carefully approached the stone figure, "that these might not be newer constructions." He slowly inched the parchment out of the statue's hand, crept over to the dais, and held it under the light. Kenfield let out a loud gasp. "This bears the watermark of the Archaeological Society. These statues," he said, turning to his companions, "are the researchers." Brunwyn's eyes went wide as her normally ruddy complexion turned pale. Grognak sighed loudly as he scratched the back of his head.
Always the curious types, digging until they find trouble.
"Oh, yes. Poor fellow," Rasheda murmured as she walked over to the dais. "Kenfield, is there anything written on that note about this maze?" The elf inhaled deeply, steadying himself as he read. "The ink is a bit smudged, but I can make out cup leads to shrine. The rest seems to just be scrollings." Rasheda peered at the note. Though she couldn't read it, the curving lines of elvish script were easily recognizable. She could see separate drawings of what seemed to be a group of trees and a waterfall, each surrounded by clusters of scratched-out words. Rasheda turned her attention back to the miniature maze. "Trees," she said, pointing to a symbol on one of the small stone walls. "Waterfall. Cup." She gestured towards a depiction of a golden goblet.
Fancy,
Grognak said.
So how's it open?
Rasheda looked at the middle of the maze. In its center was a polished jade knob, embellished with a motif of a reptilian footprint. The great lizards, she thought. Upteo's children. The side of Rasheda's mouth turned up into a small grin. "If you are in the jungle and you see a maze," she said, guiding the knob through the miniature walls, "you solve it." As the knob slid into place in front of the wall emblazoned with the goblet symbol, it lowered slightly with a small click. The room filled with the sounds of ancient machinery groaning to life as the wall behind them shuddered and began to raise. door opened, Rasheda said, with a satisfied smirk. If Dolthane is alive, we must save him, Kenthiel said, peering into the inky blackness of the room in front of them. Rasheda felt Brynwyn's iron-like grip on her forearm. You okay, Brynwyn? I know seeing your first petrified person can be a bit jarring. Me? Oh, I'm as cool as a limestone bed. Just wanting to make sure you had a pair of eyes to help you through the dark, you being a human and all. Rasheda pulled a pair of owl-eyed goggles from her satchel. But I have these. Well, nothing wrong with a little emotional support, Brynwyn replied, with a forced laugh. Is the support for me or for you? Rasheda wondered, as she fastened the goggles around her head. The next room was musty and still. Rasheda could feel the coolness of the stagnant air washing over her skin, giving her goosebumps. This would be a refreshing change from that sweltering jungle, under different circumstances, Kenthiel said, his pupils glowing in the darkness. Rasheda scanned the room as they walked forward, the goggles making her vision a mix of grays and light greens. As they walked in deeper, Rasheda started to see bits of stone along the floor. That's strange, Brynwyn mused. It doesn't look like any of the ceilings come apart.
Eyes forward,
Grognak said, pointing with an axe head. In front of the group was a statue. Like the others from before, its face was contorted into a silent scream. Unlike the others, this one was missing both arms and had a large chunk taken out of its torso. Behind it were a number of petrified figures, each in similar states of partial destruction. None of these are Dolthane, Kenthiel said, breathing a sigh of relief. But that breath soon caught in his throat when he spotted a crouched figure in a corner, away from the group. Hold on, Kenthiel. We don't know what else is in here. Before Rasheda could finish, the elf was running towards the corner. There he found that the statue was a crouching, bespectacled elf. You quick-witted fool. No hiding place was going to save you this time, Kenthiel said, as he gently touched the figure's cheek. He reached into his side pouch and produced a piece of golden wire bent into the shape of a goblet. Kenthiel's voice echoed as he tugged at threads of the weave, pointing the wire towards Dolthane's petrified body. Silently, it lifted up from the floor and hovered in the air. Right, let's get Dolthane back to the main hallway. Then we can find out what did this to... The elf was interrupted by the sound of a loud crunch, followed by the clank of iron on stone. Everyone turned to see where the sounds were coming from. Looking straight at them through the darkness was a pair of glowing red eyes that came closer with each echoing step. Entering the range of Rasheda's goggles was a large bull-like creature that seemed to be made entirely out of some kind of black metal. It appeared to be chewing on something, as bits of stone and dust fell from the corners of its mouth. The creature let out a low, echoing bray. Thought you could sneak up on us, huh? Rasheda said, pulling an arrow back in her bow. You're not the only one that can hunt in the dark. The arrow whizzed towards the creature, deflecting off of one of its shoulder plates. That hide's too thick! Hit it with something else, Shed! Brynwyn yelled, readying her war pick. Rasheda drew in a breath, focusing on her target. A lavender glow emanated from her chest as she pulled back her bowstring. It traveled through her arm and into the arrow, turning it into a shimmering bolt of energy. Rasheda exhaled. The creature bellowed as its chest was blasted with a flash of light.
Now that got its attention,
Grognak said, baring his tusks with a grin. The iron bull galloped forward, charging in Rasheda's direction. Grognak roared, sprinting with axes raised towards the metal beast. The bull proved to be faster. It rammed its horns into the center of the half-orc's body, sending him flying backwards. Grognak landed hard on the stone floor, blood sputtering from his lips. The metal bull reared back and pounded into Grognak's chest with its iron hooves. Rasheda winced as she heard the sound of cracking bones, loosing 2 more arrows at the creature. It staggered backwards as each of its shoulders was hit with a burst of light. Hang in there, Grognak! Brunwyn yelled, running to the half-orc's motionless body. She placed a palm against Grognak's chest, frantically offering a prayer to Moradin. His wounds seared with red light as the flesh fused back together. Grognak coughed, arching his back.
Maybe,
He paused to draw a ragged breath.
that was a bad idea.
This one might be worse. Brace yourself, Brunwyn said, as she grabbed Grognak's shoulders and threw him sliding across the floor. She looked up to see the iron bowl standing right in front of her. A blast of green gas shot from its nostrils, enveloping her sturdy frame. Brunwyn clamped a gloved hand over her nose and mouth. A muffled scream escaped her lips as she looked down. From the soles of her boots up to her knees, Brunwyn was rapidly turning to stone. Concentrate, Winnie! Try to resist the effects of the magic, Kenthiel called, as he continued to float his petrified colleague towards the previous room. I'll blast that thing apart once Dulthane is safe! Brunwyn closed her eyes, firmly grasping the symbol around her neck. A shower of sparks enveloped the dwarf, cascading from the top of her head down to the floor. The effect lasted a few moments before dissipating. The stone sections of Brunwyn's legs were back to normal. Moradin has blessed us this day, she said, with a smile. Grognak rose to his feet and slammed a fist into his cuirass. A symbol inscribed into its center began to glow with white light. The same light began to glow in the half-orc's eyes and course through his veins. His muscled arms flexed with new strength.
I'll hold that monstrosity in place while you two give it hell. As soon as the elf gives the signal, fall back to the door.
Brunwyn nodded as she ran from the beast. The metallic bowl was hit with 2 more blasts of lavender light. Enraged, it charged again at the half-orc.
I'm ready for you this time, bastard!
Grognak yelled, grabbing the bull by its horns. He braced himself as the creature tried to break free of his grip, shaking its massive head back and forth. Rasheda! Ready the door! Kenthiel's voice called. Rasheda sprinted to the door to get to the maze. Grognak started slowly sliding backwards as the monstrous bull struggled and pushed. He bashed his knee into its face.
Can't hold this thing much longer,
he groaned. Wait a moment. Now! Kenthiel yelled. Grognak slammed the creature to the ground, then bounded towards the door with Brunwyn sprinting close behind. Kenthiel's voice boomed through the chamber as the air behind them began to shimmer and then erupt with a thunderous, deafening sound. Rasheda's hands went to her ears as she watched the half-orc and dwarf crash through the doorway, propelled by the blast. The room shook as stones in the ceiling began to crack and shake. At the dais, Rasheda quickly moved the jade knob to the symbol of the waterfall. She gasped, leaping backwards as a chunk of stone fell onto the maze, smashing half of it. The door behind them groaned shut as a new doorway opened.
What the hells was that?
Grognak yelled, holding a large palm to his ear. A spell that should put that monster out of commission permanently, Kenthiel replied. Although I may have accidentally done some, collateral damage. Rasheda glared at the elf, who met her gaze with a sheepish grin. At any rate, it looks like now we only have one way out. We should take it. The hallway opened up into a large open-air garden surrounded by high walls on all sides. A large fountain stood in its center, a small waterfall gushing down from its top. The air was humid and filled with a strong, sweet scent of flowers. Well, at least the scenery is pleasant out here. We should take a moment to refresh, then send word to our contact in Port 9 Zaru, Kenthiel said, pulling a piece of copper wire from his pouch. Rasheda wrinkled her nose. There was something off about the smell. It had an almost sickly, musky air to it. Her eyes went wide. Don't touch any of the flowers, she cried, just as Brunwyn was leaning in to smell a group of what looked like large, yellow orchids. The center flower sprayed her with a burst of thick, purple pollen. The dwarf reeled back, retching as blood started running from her eyes and nose.
Yertris says pestilent boils, what now?
Grognak growled. Humanoid figures began rising out of the thick flower beds. Vines and roots crisscrossed their bodies, each one growing a yellow flower out of the side of its head. Rasheda inhaled and took aim with her bow. As her first arrow found its target, she had a thought that made her smirk. Well, at least we didn't have any bad luck.
Thanks for joining us on Browsing the Bestiary. Be sure to subscribe for more episodes and check out our Patreon at Browsing the Bestiary, all one word.
There you can keep up to date on any new pod-related announcements, access reference pages for each episode, and download character sheets for characters featured in our story times. You can also comment on what you think the next monster will be, and if you get it right, you'll get inspiration.
And if you're something of a lore master yourself, you can offer us corrections for any facts we got wrong. If you catch something we missed, you may get a shout out in a future episode.
Remember to cite your sources.
I'm Dungeon Mistress Jayde.
And I'm Lore Master Andy.
Until next time, may your dice rolls be high
and your adventurers ever prepared.